Hey up lads and lasses, Damphyre here, back again with some more Infinite Lagrange. Today talking about one of my favourite ships, the Predator. It's one of my favourite ships mostly just due to looks. It's not technically one of the better ships, although saying that, it has been used quite a bit recently because it has the ability to priority target carriers, and so yeah, enemy fleets, including carriers. It deploys aircraft UAVs to attack these targets. Anyway, right, let's go through it normally. So, the Predator aircraft cruiser, one of the best looking ships in the game in my opinion. There's just something about it. It looks properly like a carrier, or what I kind of imagine a carrier in space to sort of look like. It's just a shame that it's actually limited to carrying 4 medium fighters. I'd kind of expect, ships of this size to be carrying large at this point because it's a cruiser. But, albeit. That being said, actually, do you know what? Maybe I'll bug the devs to change the aircraft variant, which I don't have, but the anti-aircraft variant. So anyway, it's a back row ship. It's got good HP, it's standard sort of stuff for cruisers, good HP, okay armor, pretty much no energy resistances, but, you're back row, so you're not too worried about that kind of stuff anyway. So, due to that, you can ignore the armor system first off. However, I like to pick up the HP on here just to keep it alive. Although, that being said, it's considerably more likely that your aircraft are going to die before your Predators are going to die anyway. So, there is a good chance that, even picking up the ship HP is probably just overkill and you don't necessarily need it straight off the bat. That being said, you do want to go straight into the aircraft dock here because, yeah. Now, there are 2 ways of setting this up, and it's going to depend on what kind of fleet you're using. If you're using Swarm, you're going to go for the target lock-on speeds and the hit rates first, and then picking up probably the damage or the missile evasion. It's kind of up to you. The missile evasion at the moment is not too bad, and that's due to the fact that Sandrake's made a little bit of a comeback in the anti-air role, and its primary way of killing other aircraft is its missiles. So picking up the missile evasion isn't the worst idea in the entire world here, because the damage increase is going to be quite minimal on a lot of the medium fighters and stuff like that. So you can generally ignore this a little bit and take the evasion over. However, if you are using this to, say, knock out carriers, hangars, and that kind of thing, so there are a couple of fighters that do prioritize carriers, you want to try and pick up the prioritized target strategy first on it, then picking up your RTB, and then your lock-on speed is probably the best way to go. The increased damage doesn't seem to affect system damage, so I'm not too sure on this at the moment. I think Null Point has a guide on that. I need to go through and read it through again, but I was pretty certain that he discovered that, yeah, the damage increases just don't affect system. It's a separate thing entirely. So bear that in mind, which does leave you, your strategy, your 2 RTBs, and your 2 hit rate, well, 1 hit rate, 1 lock-on speed being like nice way to go, and that'll help knock out hangars and that kind of thing on enemy carriers, which isn't too bad. After that, I do recommend going armor system though, because the other 2 weapon systems aren't particularly great and don't do all that much for you in the first place. After the armor system, where you've picked up your HP, you probably want to pick up the energy resistance here and then the physical resistances. The crit damage received by system isn't going to help all that much. But, a bit of energy damage to stop those Xenos smashing this apart too quickly, or a bit of physical to try and, mitigate Stingray's damage or any kind of physical damage coming this way. Bear in mind, though, it is a back row ship, so you have that benefit that it's not getting targeted too much. And, people are running the targeting strategies. So as a carrier, it actually doesn't go for this carrier first. It goes for your main carriers, your Solar Whales, your CV3Ks, your Marshall Cruxes, and that kind of thing. So it's not too bad in that situation either. And gives it, pretty reliable staying power. And like I said, your chances are your aircraft are going to die before your Predators actually do. So your defensive battery system, I'd probably ignore and probably go for the Octafires first, which is the projectile weapon system. These have, 65 damage per hit. They've got a 6-second duration, 8 attacks per round, 15-second lock cooldown though, with a 3-second lock-on time, which is actually pretty decent. Unfortunately, it does prioritize aircraft and can't hit them to save its life. Not that I see it prioritizing aircraft, because again, it's on counter-attack, so it's only going to actually deal with aircraft when it's being shot at by aircraft. And like I said, most aircraft and fleets and stuff will probably go in for your cruisers, your carriers, and your battle cruisers and that kind of thing first anyway, so you won't see that too much triggering. That being said, it does have the ability to do relatively okay damage if it gets going, so I'd recommend picking up the 2 hit rates, the strategy, and then one of the cooldowns is probably your best bet here. And then you can argue one of the damages over one of the cooldowns because of how little it might actually fire at an enemy, and giving it an extra 10% damage is going to bring you up a little bit, plus the 30% damage that you can put onto it as well. And it does relatively do okay against aircraft at that point. Or like I said, you can go for the extra cooldown just to get it firing a little bit faster in the small cases that it does attack enemies. It has thankfully got the primary target, locks onto aircraft in the nearby row, which does actually increase its ability to do some damage. With the 40% hit rate, stacking it with the extra hit rate from the hit rate mods here, it actually has a good chance of hitting the aircraft. It just doesn't seem to do well. I don't know why. I can't understand why the aircraft systems just don't work in this game, like, at all, still. It's just unfathomable to me at the moment. Defensive cannon, again, it's anti-aircraft, 20 damage per hit. You probably want to go into your hit rate against frigates, destroyers, or the hit rate against fighters, corvettes, and then your cooldowns. You could probably ignore the damage here entirely. It's only 20 damage per hit, so 10% damage is going to give you 2 damage. Great. It does nothing. So you're probably just going to pick up both the hit rates. In the off chance that it is shooting at frigates or destroyers, it's going to get a nice little bonus there. In the off chance it's shooting at fighters, corvettes, it's going to get a bonus there. And the cooldowns do actually help a fair bit. I mean, you can see here that the increased cannon damage, like plus 120 versus 15%. Cooldowns like 200, so it's almost double the damage output, or DPM. So that's pretty much it. We can talk a little bit about its strategic strike. It has got strategic strike, increases the, it gives you a 120 degree cone that you can place down. It's okay. And you have an increased radius. That does literally just increase how wide it is. It doesn't increase the distance, which is a bit unfortunate, really. If it increased the distance as well, it might actually be a bit more usable. Early game, before you can get your carriers and stuff out, you can use this strategic strike as your flagship. I did in the last server, and it was useful to have strategic strikes that little bit earlier than carriers, because you normally, once you're in cruisers, you're like a day 2 away from carriers, and then maybe another day building a carrier. So in that instance, you can get them out, a little bit earlier and apply pressure with your PvP fleets using that strike function, albeit aircraft, medium fighters and bombers are not what you should be using in strikes. They just don't do very well. Corvettes are what you want to be looking for there. Now, the tactical type, I'm using this quite a bit at the current moment, and that's due to the fact that it's dropped the weird Damphyre missile launcher that just doesn't seem to do anything, and you get 2 carry info UAV pods. These increase the hit rate by, I think it's about 5% each or something like that, up to 12%, depending on the ship. And yeah, it's useful. I use it to buff my IO high speeds. They're the ones that are anti-frigate, anti-destroyer, just to give them as much humanly possible hit rates as I can, so any swarm fleet running special Carillion gets munched apart within a few seconds, because it's hilarious, and I don't know why anybody hasn't tried that before. And then I did, and now everyone's going to be running the next server, I'm sure. Anyway, It has got your prioritized cruisers, carriers on the aircraft system. So, sorry, on the information system, it has prioritized cruisers. That means if the only cruisers in your fleet are the Predators and the IOs, it will buff only those two ships. It's unfortunate that it buffs itself because, as you can see, it's completely devoid of any real weapon system whatsoever. Yes, you have the defensive battery system, but it's the same as the bloody one on the base, and it's absolutely and utterly useless. So, unfortunately, to deal with that, because you do want carriers in your fleet still and all that stuff, you still can run the Predator Tacticals, give it the ability to buff your cruisers if you are running other cruisers in your fleet. This is worth picking up. If the Predator and, say, Jaeger are the only two cruisers in your fleet, don't bother picking this up because then you're not buffing anything whatsoever. In the case of that, you just pick up the other four things here. You got hit rate, target lock-on speed, RTB, and chance of being hit by guided weapons by 4%. This is actually quite useful, but I'll talk about that a bit more in a second. If you've got cruisers in your fleet, prioritize picking up prioritized support. After that, the RTB is helpful a little bit. It does increase the sort of UAV's ability to move around different ships a little bit faster. Target lock-on speed doesn't really do much, and the hit rate doesn't do much. Out of both of those, the target lock-on speed helps a tiny bit, but it doesn't really do much. And then picking up reduced chance of being hit by guided weapons. You can, for all intensive purposes, take the prioritized support, take the guidance detection jamming, because this is a 4% decrease per level on this ship, so a 20% decrease of being hit by missiles and torps for this ship. So it's actually pretty good as a defensive mechanic, because you are back row. So, you know, the only things that are going to sort of be attacking you are missiles and torpedoes. There you go. You've now got 20% dodge rate against them, basically. And then leave it at that. Just ignore the hit rates, the RTBs, and lock-on speed. You can just put the two mods into that system and ignore everything else. It's completely and utterly fine. That's what I normally do. Your aircraft loading system, again, this is exactly the same as the base, depending on if you're going for either anti-carrier within the fleet or if you're going, you know, just anti-air and that kind of thing. If you're using these for your anti-air ships, your RTBs and hit rates and lock-on speeds are going to be what help you out the most here, and then potentially the evasion. If you are using it to knock out carriers, hangars, and that kind of thing, go for your RTBs, your hit rates, your prioritized targets, and your lock-on speed, and that's pretty much it. Again, defensive battery system, I'm not going to go into that one in much detail, but it's the same as the other one. Go double frigate fighter, go double cooldown, and ignore the damage, because it's probably not really going to do anything for you. HP system, double HP is always good. The physical resistance and the energy resistance are good here. You can ignore the crit damage received. Command system, it's got the same pretty much upgrades as the other one, except you get a strategic strike attack angle plus 20 degrees, which increases the size. Oh, is it actually... Did I get them the wrong way around? I might have got these the wrong way around. Command system. This one does increase the strike radius on the base version. That's my bad. So yeah, you can pick that up. It does actually help. It does extend the size of your cone. It's the tactical I was thinking of there, because I was using it pretty much all of last server. This increases strike angle by plus 20. I believe you get a full 180, so you got like a less of a cone, more of a semicircle, I guess. Again, not particularly useful because you can target things quite nicely with this. If there's specific fleets that you're like, I need this fleet locked down, the strategic strike being able to move it and have it sort of in a smaller area is actually more useful than making it bigger. So this I find is actually detrimental to how I fly or use this last server, and it was to stop a guy moving two fleets in against my fleet, or, you know, forcing an engagement where I have the upper hand and I can get a 2v1 by locking down one of his fleets with a strike, while my two fleets go in on one of his fleets, forcing him to either retreat or face the consequences of a 2v1. And yeah, the strike will die, but then he's lost his entire fleet, and then I've still got 2 fleets that are going to be relatively healthy, moving up to take that last fleet. So there's a bit of food for thought there on how to use what some people may consider a worse strategic strike. I consider a relatively more useful version of it, because you can prioritize fleets that you want targeted that way. Propulsion system, I forgot to talk about this on the base one, but it's basically the same. It's a cruising speed upgrade and then picking up your warp speed. It doesn't get that high, unfortunately. It's like 625 or 640 or somewhere around there. So the Predators are slow ships, which does, unfortunately, suck a little bit. Then the one that I don't have here, if we go back into Antonius, is the anti-aircraft variant. It's the same as the base for all intensive purposes. The aircraft system, the defensive battery, the armor system, same upgrades, etc. Except you're dropping the Octafire missiles for a different version of the Octafire missiles, which have a lower damage per hit, however a far faster cooldown on them, way below like 50% cooldown on them. So in that instance, it does get slightly better anti-air capabilities, because this thing's, firing a bajillion missiles at aircraft. Unfortunately, again, it still has issues, struggling to attack anything, or any aircraft. I believe it does actually get the strategy to make it row wide as well, but again, it's probably better than running the base version, but there is no reason to use either of them if you have the tactical, if you know what I mean, because at least the tactical you can buff your fleet with hit rate, whereas these two have anti-air weapon. The base and this version have anti-air weapons that don't particularly do anything. So that's pretty much it for the Predator. The tactical version's fantastic. Actually, the base version, if you have the base version and you need something to carry in a pinch and you don't have good carriers, or you don't have all the mods for your carriers, or you just want to get things off of series or target cruise carriers, the Predators are fantastic in that role. Again, the command system, the strike level 2, is actually pretty useful as well. So the overall are exceptionally useful ships, in my opinion, and we've seen a lot recently with the meta of like large swarm fleets, the meta coming in to try and target enemy carriers to kill the carriers off faster than you lose all your aircraft. And it is a viable strategy. It does work. It does require considerably more tech points to get started than Swarm. But it does do a relatively decent job of countering Swarm. Unfortunately, that does push us into a meta where now everyone just starts running Predators, Jaegers to try and kill each other's carriers, and then it's just an eye for an eye, and there's no one sort of worked out a way to sort of counter that. I have some theories that the meta is shifting a little bit. I played around with it a little bit last season. I need to play around with it more before I give you some actual videos on it. But currently in the hub, so it is what it is. Anyway, I went completely off topic there. The Predator, pretty decent carrier. Tactical's fantastic. It works really well, buffing other cruisers as well, or just buffing your fleet with a bit more hit rate. So definitely do recommend checking it out if you've got it and giving it a go. Also, like I said, it's one of the coolest looking ships. This thing maxed as well looks really, really sick. So, here we go. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.